Terry Barber is a best-selling author and founder of Lighthouse Catholic Media. Jesse Romero is a retired law enforcement officer, a former kickboxing champion with a master's degree in theology. And together, they share a passion for evangelization and PhDs in common sense. It's the Terry and Jesse Show on Immaculate Heart Radio. To join the show, call 888-526-2151. Now here's Terry and Jesse.
This is the Terry and Jesse Show, the Lord's Gym. We are your spiritual fitness trainers. We want to talk about, is America racist? And the reason is because it seems to me that there's a lot of accusations of police and racial profiling. And in fact, President Barack Obama said that racism is part of America's DNA. I would submit to you that the Catholic faith is the answer to racism.
Amen.
I'll tell you why. Jesus Christ, he tells us himself in John chapter 17. He says, I pray that they also may be in us, like I am in you and you are in me, so that the world may believe that thou hast sent me. In other words, Jesus Christ prayed that the entire world would be incorporated into his body, which is the Catholic Church. Do you know something about the Catholic Church? There's about 198 countries in the world today. Did you know that the Catholic Mass, the sacred liturgy, was celebrated in every language on planet Earth today? Absolutely. That's why the world is called, the church is called Catholic. Universal, international. Jesus Christ, as he says in John 17:23, he wants the whole world to be in him. And St. Paul, he also gave a blow to racism in Galatians chapter 3, verse 26, where he said, for in Christ Jesus you are all sons of God through faith. He says, for as many of you as were baptized into Christ have put on Christ. There is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither slave nor free, there is neither male nor female, for you're all one in Christ Jesus. I want you to listen to a black attorney talk a little bit about racism, and I think he makes some outstanding points. Then we want to take phone calls and discuss what he has to say. Engineer, we're ready.
Is racism still a major problem in America? President Barack Obama certainly thinks so. He said that racism is in our DNA. Really? If racism is in our DNA, doesn't that mean it's immutable, unchangeable? But America has changed, and dramatically so. In 1960, 60% of Americans said they would never vote for a black president. Almost 50 years later, the black man who said racism is in America's DNA was elected president, and 4 years later, re-elected. That's only the most obvious example of racial progress. There are many others. Take interracial marriage. As William H. Fry of the Brookings Institution wrote, sociologists have traditionally viewed multiracial marriage as a benchmark for the ultimate stage of assimilation of a particular group into society. Black-white marriages were still illegal in 16 states until 1967, and a 1958 Gallup poll found that only 4% of Americans approved of black-white marriages. Today, that number is 87%. In 1960, of all marriages by blacks, only 1.7% were black-white. Today, it's 12% and rising. Now, what about racial profiling and abuse of blacks by police? Doesn't that prove that racism remains a major problem? In the summer of 2014, Ferguson, Missouri became ground zero for this accusation when a white policeman shot and killed an unarmed black teenager. While a Department of Justice investigation of the incident cleared the officer of any wrongdoing, it did accuse the city's police department of racial bias. But what was the Justice Department's report's most headline-grabbing stat? The gap between the percentage of blacks living in Ferguson, 67%, and the percentage of those stopped by police for traffic violations who are black, 85%, an 18-point discrepancy. Racism, right? Not so fast. Blacks comprise 25% of New York City, but account for 55% of those stopped for traffic offenses, a 30-point discrepancy, far bigger than that of Ferguson. Why isn't the NYPD, a department that is now majority-minority, considered even more institutionally racist than the Ferguson PD? The answer is you cannot have an honest discussion about police conduct without an honest discussion of black crime. Though blacks are 13% of the population, they commit 50% of the nation's homicides. And almost always the victim is another black person, just as most white homicides are against other whites. In 2012, according to the Center for Disease Control, police killed 123 blacks, while, by the way, killing over twice that many whites. But that same year, blacks killed over 6,000 people, again, mostly other blacks. What about traffic stops? Unlike when responding to dispatch calls, police officers exercise more discretion when it comes to traffic stops. Therefore, racist cops can have a field day when it comes to traffic stops, right? Actually, no. The National Institute of Justice is the research agency of the Department of Justice. In 2013, the National Institute of Justice published a study called Race, Trust, and Police Legitimacy. 3 out of 4 black drivers admitted that they were stopped by the police for a legitimate reason. Blacks, compared to whites, were on average more likely to commit speeding and other traffic offenses. The Institute wrote, seatbelt usage is chronically lower among black drivers. If a law enforcement agency aggressively enforces seatbelt violations, police will stop more black drivers. The NIJ's conclusion? These numerical disparities result from differences in offending. In other words, not because of racism. Similarly, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration also found that blacks violate traffic laws at higher rates than whites in every offense, whether it's driving without a license, not wearing a seatbelt, not using a child safety seat, or speeding. Is there still racism in America? Of course there is. But racism is not in America's DNA. Recent history and a lot of research and data prove it. As liberal Harvard sociologist Orlando Patterson said, America is now the least racist white majority society in the world, has a better record of legal protections of minorities than any other society, white or black, offers more opportunities to a greater number of black persons than any other society, including all of those of Africa. Patterson, by the way, is black.
This is the Terry and Jesse show. I think this is a well-documented, basically speech by a black attorney here in Los Angeles, who, in fact, he's written a book that talks about the state, the crisis of fatherhood within the black community. And how can you argue with the facts? The Terry and Jesse show, we're not right versus left. We are right versus wrong. And all we want to know is what the truth says. Terry?
Amen. And that's why I have this DVD called The Truth Has No Color. Glenn Ellen, he's a friend of Alex Jones. They were both black African-American converts to the Catholic faith. I'm sure you've heard about Alex Jones, but Glenn Ellen's about 6'9". You should see it on the video when Alex Jones introduces him. He's a man that had racism against him, and he tells his conversion story. It's powerful, powerful DVD on why he became a Catholic. I would love to give it away to you if you call us at 877-526-2151. I want you to watch this because I think you're going to learn a lot about why this man became a Catholic. And again, the way he communicates, I wish I had him out on the Speakers Bureau, but he's taking care of his wife, and he's not able to go out and speak. But this one video that you can see, it's a powerful presentation of a conversion, and he deals a lot with the issue of racism. That's why we call it The Truth Has No Color. Call us at 877-526-2151. If you have a question or a comment, maybe you don't agree with those facts. I understand. Give us a call. Our toll-free number is 888-526-2151. That's 888-526-2151. I also want to throw in one more thing, Jesse, that you mentioned earlier. The Smithsonian Institute is putting racist Planned Parenthood founder Margaret Sanger in the civil rights exhibit. She's there right now. And I'm thinking, what? If we already talked about Margaret Sanger, for those who don't know who she is, she's the founder of Planned Parenthood. To me, Jesse, what this reminds me of is saying something like Adolf Hitler is going to get the Citizen of a Year award because of who he is. Margaret Sanger should never be there, and this is another indication how upside down our world is. If you want to have a question or a comment, I know the lines are already lighting up. Call us at 888-526-2151. Do you agree that she should be there at the civil rights exhibit, Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood? I don't. How about you?
Margaret Sanger, again, the founder of Planned Parenthood, the nation's largest abortion and baby parts trafficking chain. Margaret Sanger, she first planted her birth control clinics in black neighborhoods. And I don't know if you realize that more black babies are aborted than born alive in the United States. Is this microphone on? Let me say that again. More black babies are aborted than born alive.
Yep.
And this is so-called reproductive justice. Are you kidding me? Progressives call the killing of a black baby in higher numbers than any other nationality. They call that reproductive justice. I don't think they actually know what justice means. And the fact of the matter is, Margaret Sanger, she's her bust, her face is in a museum called the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery. I don't know if she's somebody that we should be praising. Margaret Sanger, she became associated with the eugenics movement. She was actually a member of the American Eugenics Society. And the fact of the matter is, she said this. She advocated for the forced sterilization of just not the mentally unfit, but the poor and of those pregnant outside of marriage, of the incarcerated and those that she called feeble-minded. And we have a statue of her? I don't think so.
I agree. You want to get that DVD? There's The Truth Has No Color. Call us at 877-526-2151. We'll be back after this quick break.
Back to the Terry and Jesse Show on Immaculate Heart Radio. Want to join the conversation? Call 888-526-2151. Now here's Terry and Jesse.
This is the Terry and Jesse Show, Blue Collar Catholic Radio. We're talking about, is America racist? I believe this country is the least racist country on planet Earth, without a doubt. In fact, let me ask a question. Here's a rhetorical question, okay? Are Native Americans, are Native Indians today better or worse because of the arrival of Columbus and Western civilization? Just a thought. I'm just asking. Here's another question. Are blacks today better or worse because their ancestors were brought over here as slaves? Just a question I'm asking. How about, are Mexicans who now live on the American side of the border better or worse than Mexicans whose land was not conquered during the Mexican War? I think you all know the answers to that. There is racism in the country. Why? Because there's sin. As long as there's sin, there's always going to be evil and hatred. But I would say that racism seems to be more top-heavy on the progressive liberal side of the aisle. Again, we just quoted to you, the Smithsonian Institute has a statue of Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, who was a committed racist. And she had so many anti-black statements, it would take a whole program to quote them all. Also, there's an Ivy League professor who basically, this was a while back ago, after the George Zimmerman verdict, when he was found not guilty of murdering Trayvon Martin, this Ivy League professor, Anthea Butler, the associate professor at the University of Pennsylvania's Department of Religious Studies, she went on a rant and called God a racist. She says this, quote, God ain't no good all the time. In fact, sometimes God's not for us. She says, as a black woman in a nation that has taken too many pains to remind me that I'm not a white man and am capable of taking care of my reproductive rights, my voting rights, I know that this American God ain't my God. As a matter of fact, I think he's a white racist God with a problem. And so, again, this is a professor that would consider herself a progressive liberal. And it's funny, but they throw the word racism out. They throw it out very frequently. And I'll tell you another racist institution, Planned Parenthood. That's alive and well. Terry, can you tell us a little bit about that connection?
You bet. And I'm going to tell you because Lila Rose, a pro-life student and reporter at UCLA, launched an undercover investigation aimed at exposing racism of the largest abortion clinic merchant, Planned Parenthood. With the help of an actor, she contacted Planned Parenthood clinics in 7 states, inquiring if they would be willing to accept a donation earmarked for abortion of black babies. The results were jaw-dropping. What? Rose was appalled to discover that every last clinic agreed. Not one employee objected or questioned the request, even when the actor insisted that the purpose was to lower the number of black people in America. When the caller phoned an Ohio branch, he was told Planned Parenthood will accept money for whatever reason. Now, read the outrageous transcripts. I mean, I can give them to you on our Twitter account. But, Jesse, the very fact that they're taking money under any consequences, and especially when it's killing, like black babies, that's what I want to do. And they're like, okay, no problem. We get paid whether they're black, white, or green. What? Is this microphone on? That's Planned Parenthood. That's the Planned Parenthood that one of our presidential candidates, I'll say it, Mrs. Clinton, wants to support. I'm just going to let you vote with your Catholic mind. But as far as I'm concerned, killing unborn babies is against my Catholic faith on morals. She ain't going to get my vote. Jess?
Not only does Planned Parenthood accept racist donations, as this article says, you can get on our Twitter account at Terry Jesse Show, but Planned Parenthood, what a coincidence. It has the propensity for building clinics in minority neighborhoods.
Exactly.
Yep. You'll find that 79 to 82% of Planned Parenthood neighborhoods are in black communities or in Latino communities. Here's what I believe. I believe that Planned Parenthood is doing the job that the Ku Klux Klan didn't finish. That's my take. In fact, here's a Protestant pastor. He's the director of Protecting Black Life. Here's what he says. He says, 79% of Planned Parenthood surgical abortion facilities are located within walking distance of African American and Hispanic communities. This is Reverend Arnold Colbreth, director of Protecting Black Life. He says this: minority communities are the #1 targets of Planned Parenthood. It's no wonder abortion remains the leading cause of death amongst African Americans, higher than all other causes combined.
Wow. Getting
this information to as many people as possible is not just critical, it's a matter of life and death for countless black babies and oftentimes even for their mothers.
Jesse, when I read these statistics, it just makes me think. I have many good friends. As a matter of fact, a priest married me, was an African American, and I just don't understand how some of the people who are politically minded and they're African Americans and they're going, I'm going to look the other way. I just don't understand that. It blows me away. Why do I want to give this DVD, The Truth Has No Color, by Glenn Allen, which Alex Jones introduces Glenn Allen? This guy's a fantastic speaker. His conversion story, I guarantee you, will knock you off your horse. It's free. You just pay the shipping. Call us at 877-526-2151. Also, if you don't agree with these facts that we're giving and the statistics here, and maybe you think we're missing something, hey, we carry a dialogue with anyone. I don't care if you're on the opposite side of whatever. Come on, let's chat. Our phone number. Anyone has a question or a comment, call us at 888-526-2151. That's 888-526-2151. If you don't believe what we're saying too, Google Planned Parenthood's history. You'll find it for yourself.
Here's another thing that sometimes it upsets me. Mm-hmm. When we find people that basically embellish or make things up out of whole cloth. For example, here's a perfect example of what I would call the Sal Alinsky rule number 5, which is ridicule is a man's most potent weapon. Demonize your opponent. Yep. Here's a classic example. Congressman Charlie Rangel from New York, he's a Democrat, he's a black Democrat. He said this a couple years ago. He said, George Bush is our Bull Connor. Okay? Look at that statement. George Bush is our... So who's Bull Connor? Okay? Well, Congressman Rangel, let me set the record straight for Congressman Rangel, who's a black Democrat. Bull Connor, his name is Theophilus Eugene Bull Connor. He died in 1973. He was a police official, a chief in the southern United States during the American Civil Rights Movement. And he was a staunch advocate of racial segregation. Well, as a public safety commissioner of Birmingham, Alabama in the 60s, Bull Connor became infamous for using fire hoses and police attack dogs against unarmed, nonviolent protest marchers. And the spectacles of his being broadcast on television, this was the catalyst to major social changes and legal challenges in the South that helped in large measure to assure the passage of the Voting Rights of 1965. Here's what's ironic about Bull Connor, is that Charlie Rangel didn't tell anybody. Bull Connor was a Democrat. Okay? So let me ask you this question. He says George Bush was our Bull Connor. Here's my question. How many times has President Bush, when he was president, how many times did he order police to use attack dogs on blacks? Let me guess. And how many times did President Bush demand that fire hoses be turned on blacks? Here's the answer. None. So the point is, so much for calling George Bush our Bull Connor. This is what I call demonizing your opponent with lies. This is a Sal Alinsky method.
Absolutely. And before we go to Joe in Pasadena, I just want to remind you, I thought of Dr. Bernard Nathanson, who's the founder of all the major abortion rights groups back in the late 60s. He converted to Catholicism. Aborting America, his CD is a powerful story on abortion in America, and I'd love to give it away. I'll give you 2 copies. Whether you want Glenn Ellen's CD on The Truth Has No Color, just call 877-526-2151. The CD by Bernard Nathanson is one of the best pro-life CDs ever. Let's go ahead to Joe in Pasadena. Welcome to the Terry and Jesse Show.
Hey, hi, you guys. I have a comment on the abortion. Then I want to ask you and
sure.
Terry a question, and Jesse a question, get your input. But here it is. On the abortion issue, what really upsets me is that there's a film called The Silent Scream.
Yes.
And in partial birth abortion, very gruesome the way these poor babies are killed. And what gets me upset is that, and you know, I'm not a female and my wife has had children, but here's my question. Shouldn't the safest place for a baby be in the womb of her own mother?
Amen.
So when you get into this debate about, well, you know, if the woman's life at stake, well, I don't want to be callous and insensitive, but if the woman's life is at stake, shouldn't the woman give her life? Wouldn't a mother stand in front of a car if her baby was going to be killed? So what's the difference? And another thing in regards to that is that all these women that talk about Clinton and talk about, well, we got the mother's choice and women are raped, you mean to tell me that all these abortions that happen every day, women are being raped? I don't think so. I think they use it as a form of contraceptive. So my comment is, I'm really disappointed in some of our women that just give in to really what it is. It's just pleasure. They're killing their own children. And I think we baby them too much about, well, they're raped or the life of the mother, but she's supposed to protect her child.
Right. Joe, I appreciate your comments. We're going to have to take a quick break. Jesse and I will give you a comment, too. But that Silent Scream is what Dr. Bernard Nathanson showed. That was years ago. And that's the same CD, man, that I'm giving away, Aborting America. And I think if you get a copy of that, Joe, you'll confirm what you're saying, that it's a sad scenario on abortion in this country. Call 877-526-2151 to get Dr. Bernard Nathanson's CD. I'll give you 2 copies for free. You just pay the shipping. Also, you can get Glenn Ellen's conversion story, The Truth Has No Color. Call us at 877-526-2151. And if you have a question or a comment, call us at a different number. That's 888-526-2151. That's 888-526-2151. We'll be right back after this quick break.
This is Bishop David O'Connell, and you're listening to the Terry and Jesse Show on Immaculate Heart Radio.
Back to the Terry and Jesse Show on Immaculate Heart Radio. Want to join the conversation? Call 888-526-2151. Now here's Terry and Jesse.
We're back to Terry and Jesse Show. His pain is your gain. We're talking about racism in America. America's still a racist country. And we had a call about the issue of abortion, and I agree in part with the caller that oftentimes abortion is used as backup contraception, but I also believe it's a man-caused problem. Men are the ones, as a result of their irresponsibility, as a result of them following their disordered carnal appetites of lust, Abortion is a man-caused problem. The men are the predators. The men are the ones that seduce the women. And oftentimes women, when they feel like, wow, I'm going to be left alone financially, the guy's going to leave me. He's going to leave me with a bunch of babies, and I have no source of income, and I have to provide for these kids. It drives these women into despair. I forget the name of the Catholic saint. It'll come to me right now. Maybe Terry can remind me.
Sure.
The Catholic saint that died, a female Catholic saint that died giving birth. She was just recently canonized a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that's Gianna in Italy.
I can't pronounce her name. You know what I'm...
Gianna something. Yep.
Yeah, she was a Catholic mother. In fact, she was a doctor, had 4 kids.
That's right.
And they told her that you're going to die if you have this 4th child or 5th child. And she knew that she was not going to be able to give birth, and so what she did, she gave birth, she passed away so that her child could live. Terry,
her name is Mola, Gianna Mola. That's who it is.
Couldn't remember her name.
Yep.
Let's go to...
All right, let's go to Anonymous, and if you want to join in on the conversation, whether you agree or disagree, our number is 888-526-2151. That's 888-526-2151. Anonymous in California, welcome to the Terry and Jesse Show.
Thank you. I just want to segue on the comments about Bull Connor, which is that Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. was a registered Republican. It was well known back then that the Democratic Party was very racist, especially with what George Wallace was doing in the South.
Yeah, go ahead.
And his, I'm sure you know all this, but Martin Luther King's niece is Alveda King.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Who's been on Catholic Radio many a time.
Yep.
And she's very, very pro-life, and she talks about abortion as being a form of eugenics for blacks.
Right.
But I thought it was just very interesting that Martin Luther King was a registered Republican.
Anonymous,
you know your history.
Anonymous, you're very well informed. In fact, most people in the audience probably don't know. I'll just give a couple of bullets. This is all this is out of Wikipedia. The Ku Klux Klan, which is a racist organization, according to Wikipedia, it was born from the Southern Democrats, and they terrorized Republicans, blacks, Catholics, and whites that didn't agree with them. Here's another thing that most people don't know. That the Republicans, they passed the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to abolish slavery, and this gave blacks due process and the right to vote. And the Democrats tried to stop this legislation, but they failed. Here's another zinger. Abraham Lincoln was the president to abolish slavery. He was a Republican president. In fact, that's what he ran on. He ran on the anti-slavery party. Here's another thing that many people probably don't realize, that Abraham Lincoln was shot by John Wilkes Booth. He was an angry Southern Democrat, and Booth was very angry that Abraham Lincoln had emancipated the black slaves. So, just a couple of points that I thought would be interesting for the audience. Just the facts, man. Just the facts.
Jesse, that's it. Anonymous, thanks for your call, and we appreciate you anytime calling in. You bet. God love you.
Thank you.
You bet.
By the way, let me just segue real quick. This Saturday, I'm going to be here in Phoenix, Arizona, locally. I'm going to be at the Diocesan Center, downtown at the diocese, at Bishop Olmsted's headquarters. I'm going to be speaking from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I'm going to be speaking on spiritual warfare, the power of prayer, what prayer does to the brain. It's going to be from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., so if you can just show up there at the Diocesan Center in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm going to be there from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., and it's going to be a powerful morning of evangelization.
And just a quick note, the SCRC conference is coming up in Southern California, the Labor Day weekend. If you go to scrc.org, you can get more information. And one more good event that's coming up September 20th.
Terry, we're going to be there. Tell the audience we're going to be there.
I forgot. Jesse and I will, I got to tell you, we're both going to be there at a booth. We'd love to meet you at the SCRC convention. We're going to bring some goodies. Jesse will have his books. I'll have my books. And it'll be a great event. We're going to be there for the 3 or 4 day holiday, and we'd love to meet you there. Also, the Theology of the Body Conference is coming up in Ontario Convention Center September 23rd to the 25th. That's going to be a great event. Archbishop Gomez will be there. I will be there. Also, the family conference is coming up the first weekend of August in Wichita. I'll be giving a talk there. If you want to get Jesse Romero to come to your parish, whether it's in English or Spanish, go to his website, jesseromero.com. If you'd like me to come and talk on how to share your faith with anyone, call the 877 888-526-2151 number. That's the same number you can get Bernard Nathanson's Aborting America CDs or The Truth Has No Color by Glenn Ellen. If you have a question or a comment on anything we're saying, especially I got to believe that certain people are going to say, wait, you guys are making some outlandish statements about racism. Are you sure you've got it right? We do. Put it on our Twitter account. You can get all the articles, just the facts. Call us at 888-526-2151 if you have a question or comment on anything on the Catholic faith. That's 888-526-2151.
Here's another bit of information I think that'll be interesting is I think here's the best way to handle the issue of race, really, is be colorblind. What do I mean by that? Be colorblind. I love what this very popular Jewish psychiatrist, his name's Viktor Frankl, okay? He's written several books. He was a Nazi death camp survivor, okay? Most of his family was killed in the Nazi death camps. And they asked him one day, they asked Dr. Viktor Frankl, they asked him, you know, he suffered the horrors of a Nazi death camp, and most of his family was killed there. And after the Holocaust, they asked him, Dr. Viktor Frankl, do you hate the Germans? You know what he said? He said, no, I don't. Because there are only two races, the decent and the indecent. Race is unimportant. Let me quote that again. Dr. Viktor Frankl was asked, do you hate the Germans for what they did to your family? They killed half your family and they tried to kill you. Do you hate them? He said, and he's a Jew. He said this, no, I don't, because there are only two races, the decent and the indecent. He says, race is unimportant. Let me tell you this. If you remember that for the rest of your life, what he just said, there are only two races, decent and indecent. Race is unimportant. If you remember that for the rest of your life, you will never be a racist. Because as Catholic Christians, remember this, we are not saved by race. We are saved by grace.
Amen to that. Let's go to Bill in Reno. Yes, in Reno. Bill, welcome to the Terry and Jesse Show, my friend.
Thank you. Well, on the subject of race,
yes,
whether racism is bad depends on what you mean by racism. It is wrong to discriminate against people of another race simply because of the color of their skin. But it is not wrong, and truth requires us to recognize that racial differences in intelligence do exist. The average black IQ is 15 to 20 points below the average white IQ.
Okay. All right. I don't know where those statistics come from, but thanks for calling in. And let me give a definition of racism, and I guess we can agree on this, that racism is always wrong. I just went over here to dictionary.com, and here's what it says. Racism, dictionary.com. Hatred or intolerance of another race or other races. The idea that one's own race is superior and has the right to dominate others, or that a particular racial group is inferior to others. Now, do some nationalities seem to do better in tests and have more intellectual aptitude? Probably. I think if the playing field is level, I think all people will have the same ability to aspire to goodness or to achieve some type of greatness. But the fact of the matter is, we don't quantify people's goodness or their dignity by their intelligence. In fact, if we did that, I don't think I would rate very high. I don't think I have a real high IQ myself. I'm glad that the Lord says that those who get to heaven are not those that have a PhD from Harvard, but those who have faith like a child.
Well said, and I would take issue with Bill on that too, because a lot of our black brothers and sisters are being raised without a dad, and I know that affects the education process for kids. So, Bill, thanks for your call. We agree to disagree on that one, brother. Before we go to the next call, we're going to have to take another break, but I want to get to you, all of your callers that are on hold. If you want to join in on the conversation, whether you agree or disagree, call us at 888-526-2151. I'm giving away Dr. Bernard Nathanson, his CDs on Aborting America, and also The Truth Has No Color by Glenn Ellen, the DVD. I want you to see and hear what these gentlemen are saying, whether it's racism or on abortion, call us at the toll-free number is 877-526-2151. That's 877-526-2151. I'd be remiss if I didn't remind you the Spiritual Warfare Conference is sold out at the end of the month, but we do have a Marian Conference coming up the last weekend of August with Fred Krause and Paul Clay. These are two converts that came into the Catholic Church, and I think you're going to find that fascinating. If you want more information, go to our website, catholicrc.org. That's catholicrc.org, or call 877-526-2151. I'm going to encourage you to pick up Dr. Nathanson's CD and give it to a person who believes in abortion, and then ask them a couple questions after they listen to Dr. Nathanson. He had performed over 75,000 abortions himself, and now he's pro-life. He's gone to his eternal reward. He ended up becoming a Catholic. I gave it away. Spoiler. Hey, get the CDs by calling 877-526-2151. After the quick break, we'll take your call. Don't turn that dial.
Back to the Terry and Jesse Show on Immaculate Heart Radio. Want to join the conversation? Call 888-526-2151. Now here's Terry and Jesse.
Welcome back to the Terry and Jesse Show. We talk about this show not being right versus left in the political realm. No, it's right versus wrong. And we know racism is wrong. And we know that in America, if you look at what the Catholic Church has done worldwide, it's done a great job of showing that racism, that the truth has no color. So we've demonstrated that earlier in the show, and we've got calls coming in, and we'd love to have you join us. So let's go to Melissa in California. Melissa, welcome to the Terry and Jesse Show.
Good morning, Terry.
Hi, Melissa.
I just had a comment about. I just wanted to agree with you when you said that. That African American children, a lot of homes, maybe have a different kind of upbringing than other kids. And I'm an educator in California, and it's very difficult to create any kind of test that doesn't have some kind of cultural bias, just by its nature, just because of who's writing the test. And although the gentleman who called earlier said that statistically that some kids underperform compared to other kids to race, I would just really be very cautious about validating those statistics, because depending on where you've grown up, how you read a test, how you understand those questions based on your upbringing can really make a difference. So I would really downplay any kind of statistical information that says one race performs better or less than another race.
Well, Melissa, thank you. That was very educational. Like I said, without Dad being home, I know that affects the kids' performance in school and in a lot of other areas too. So thank you, Melissa.
Absolutely.
God love you, and thank you for taking the time to call the Terry and Jesse Show.
Thank you. God bless you for all your work. Love you guys.
Okay, and Melissa, I love you too. Bye-bye now. Let's go to Las Vegas, Nevada. Before we do that to Larry, I just want to remind everybody, Dr. Bernard Nathanson's CD set, his CDs on Aborting America. He had the largest abortion clinic in the Western world. He performed over 75,000 abortions. You got to hear his story. You can call 877-526-2151 to get that. Before we go to Larry,
I want to talk a little bit about the greatness of the Catholic faith in terms of this whole issue, whole issue of racism. And one of the things that we've seen around the world is the issue of slavery. And let's just be honest, that slavery, it's been practiced all over the world. Okay, every culture since the beginning of time, every culture, every ancient country, Greece, Rome, China, Africa, India, even American Indians had slaves before Columbus arrived. So slavery isn't something that's unique to the West. But I will say this, that the abolition of slavery, this is unique to the West, specifically to Christianity, because there's no civilization that's been dependent on slavery that's been able to eradicate it except the West. Why is it that in the West we were able to eradicate slavery? I think Abraham Lincoln said it best. He said this, quote, As I would not be a slave, so I would not be a master, close quote. In other words, Abraham Lincoln understood this to be nothing more than the application of Jesus Christ's golden rule, to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. There is no history of an anti-slavery movement outside the West. In fact, it's still practiced today in Muslim countries. They still practice slavery right now. And even atheists will admit that the anti-slavery movements in America and in England were led by Christians and Christianity. Terry?
Yeah, let's get Larry. Larry, we're delighted you called. You've got a different view, and we love that, Larry. Welcome to the Terry and Jesse Show. What's on your mind?
Well, thank you for taking my call. This
is
a little different view because I think you guys need some balance here.
Okay, well, we got you on the line now.
Driving down Charleston Boulevard a second ago, I listened to you guys going on and on about how Democrats shot Lincoln, how Democrats promoted slavery, how Democrats did that. Listen, you got to remember, it was the Democrats, not the Republicans. They fought it. Medicare. They passed Medicare in 1965. They passed Medicaid. This helps millions of people. What would we do today with the seniors without Medicare? There's the Voting Rights Act. That was passed by Democrats, not Republicans. The Affordable Care Act that currently has 20 million people with health insurance for the first time. Many are Catholics. And why in the world would you condemn? You seem so one-sided with Republicans. You're so blinded by this abortion thing. You just go on and on and on and on and on, and you would vote for Hitler.
Okay, Larry, you're going on and on. Can we respond?
Let's have a conversation.
Larry. Yeah,
okay.
give me your answer.
Yeah,
thanks, Larry.
Yeah. Larry, it's interesting the way, and I'm glad you're calling. I'm glad you're listening, but you use the term abortion in a very flippant manner. That's not the way the Catholic Church sees it. In fact, an entire document was written on this called the Gospel of Life by St. John Paul II. And he actually says in that document and in a previous document called Christi Fidelis Laici, he says the issue of abortion is the greatest problem we face right now. Those are the words from a saint. In other words, he says everything else plays second fiddle to the issue of abortion. That comes from paragraph 38, St. John Paul II, Christi Fidelis Laici. In other words, if we're going to kill our babies, who cares about fixing the economy? Who cares about the Affordable Care Act? Who cares about fixing our schools? Who cares about the weather and the climate? If we have no human beings to pay taxes, to go to school, to run businesses, who cares about the other things? And St. John Paul II, that's exactly what he meant in that document. If we're killing the next generation, who cares about fixing the economy? Who cares about pollution and all these other things if there's going to be no human beings to enjoy those things?
Larry, I'm going to throw it back to you, and I just want to throw one thing, that social justice begins in the womb. But Larry, now it's your turn. Respond, please. I'm all ears.
Listen.
Yes, Larry.
The point I'm getting at is I am not pro-abortion.
Good.
I'm not pro-abortion. Nobody, most Democrats, most people supporting the Affordable Care Act, Medicare, the Voting Rights Act, they are not pro-abortion. They are simply a woman's right to choose is part of that. Now, the point I'm making here is, do you feel that all of those good things that people in the Democratic Party have done for the social good of this country, that's negated by the Catholic position on abortion?
You have to weigh all the facts, and you haven't brought up a lot of other things. For example, what about euthanasia? What party has promoted euthanasia? What party has promoted homosexual? What party has given us homosexual marriage? What party has given us medical marijuana? You have to look at the totality of what a party is doing. And again, when we go right to the fundamental issue that John Paul II wrote an entire encyclical on, the gospel of life, the issue of abortion, this is the issue of our day. This is the slavery of our day. This is the civil rights issue of our day. If we don't get that right, nothing else matters.
Larry, I'm going to give you the final word because we just have another couple minutes. I'm not opposed to saying both parties have done good, okay? We say that about on religion, too, that there's all good in all parties. We just want to. I'm not interested in who voting for a party. I'm interested in moving the football towards what God would want when it comes to moral teachings. Larry, your final words. I'm all ears.
Okay, you guys ought to have your 501(c) repealed. You are nothing but another Fox News channel promoting Republican. You don't care about health care for the millions of people who have it. You want to take away Medicare from the seniors. You want to take away Medicaid from the poor. You are just... All
Larry, I'm so glad, Larry, let me just say, because we only got a minute, I'm so glad that you were able to call us and have the freedom to express your opinion on our show. We appreciate that. One thing I will say to you, my friend, is I'm going to pray that both of us find the truth in Christ. Is that a fair statement, Larry? Would you agree with that?
Well, I agree with that.
Thank you.
The truth
well,
in
thank
Christ,
you.
And I'm a Lutheran. I'm an evangelical Lutheran.
Well, God bless you.
ELCA.
God bless
and
you.
We have female pastors. We have gay pastors. The point is, we are open to everybody.
Well, that's what I expected you to say, Larry.
It's not like the Catholic Church.
No, Larry, and I appreciate you being so honest about your positions. I hope and pray we can have another conversation. If you'd like to chat with me after the hours, I'm here. Call me at 877-526-2151. I hear the music. We're out of time, Larry. Glad to have you call. Jesse.
I just want to make one more statement before we wrap it up here. I'm going to be this Saturday. I'm going to be at the Diocesan Center here in downtown Phoenix from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I'm going to be speaking on the power of prayer on spiritual warfare. You can just go to the Diocesan Center this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I'd love to meet you. Last thing I'll say is this. The Catholic faith is not right versus left. It is right versus wrong. And the fact of the matter is Jesus Christ says, you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. That's what we want to do here is promote Jesus Christ and the truth of his gospel. Let the chips fall where they may. We don't align ourselves with any party. By default, some party may be congruent with the Catholic faith, but that's not because it's the party that's congruent with the Catholic faith. It's that party have just got it right on that particular issue.
Well said. Folks, I want to get you that DVD on The Truth Has No Color by Glenn Ellen. Alex Jones introduces him. Wonderful conversion story of this black man who had to deal with racism, and he became a Catholic. And if you want to get Dr. Bernard Nathanson's CD, Aborting America, I think it's the best pro-life CD in America, and I've distributed tens of thousands of them, and I'm going to give them away right now. Call us, 877-526-2151. To all of our listeners, Larry, everybody, ask Jesus Christ for more faith every day. That's how our faith will grow. And in accordance with the will of God, because it has nothing to do with Jesse and Terry. It has everything to do with Jesus Christ, our Savior. May God richly bless you and your family. And tomorrow, same time, same station, we'll go at it again with the truths of our faith. And again, if you tell your friends to join us, you can go to our Catholic website, catholicrc.org, or call in at 877-526-2151. God love you.